Greetings. I am Dr. Sonia Cunningham Leverett with Hadassah's Crown Publishing, and we are taking a few minutes today to tell you how to effectively communicate with your children's book Illustrator. And so if you are a self-published author or if you are publishing in a hybrid manner, you have influence over how your illustrations look. And that is an advantage for self-published and hybrid published authors. So here is some information that I think will be very helpful as you make decisions to communicate effectively with your illustrator. For one, you need to decide on the size of your book. So the most common is the 8x10, and that's in either paperback or in hardcover. But this is just an example, but you need to decide that prior to, is it going to be portrait? Is it going to be landscape? Or is it going to be a square book? You have a number of options. And so you want to decide on the printing venue that you're going to use and make sure those options are available to you. For example, if you're using Amazon, they have limited options for, well, for hardcover, you need at least 50 pages. And then for landscape, 4x6 is one of the largest sizes in landscape. So those are some things you need to check out before you decide on the actual size. And then when I say layout, I'm saying full bleed. That means all of your pictures take up the entire spread, or is your picture on one page? And notice this is a landscape picture on one side of the spread versus this being a landscape picture that takes the entire spread. So you have those options. Another option is to have one side of the spread with a full image. So again, and I have a diagram that I'm going to show you in just a minute right here that helps you make those decisions. So you can see on this slide, you have the option of square books, a portrait book, or a landscape book, and you can have words on one side, art on the other side. You can have art on one side, words on the other side, or you can have the image take up the entire spread and then the words be on top of the spread. So I will let you know how you can get a copy of this in the description of this video. So be sure to check out the description. Now, how do you want your characters to look? Do you want them to look like real people? Do you want them to be a little bit exaggerated or cartoonish like? Do you want them to be stick figures with funny looking legs? And here are some other styles too. For example, it can be your style. It can look like you, or it can be exaggerated with eyes like the Simpsons, a funny mouth like the Simpsons. It can be enchanting like Disney princesses, or Powerpuff Girls. You have the Wild Thornberries, or you have the Fairly Odd Parents. And these are just some random samples of what your figures can actually look like. There are some others as well, but all of these things you need to decide up front before you approach your illustrator. And you may want to have some actual samples that you send to the illustrator to let them know what it is you're looking for. So how many characters will this illustrator be drawing? You need to know this up front so that you can be accurate in the information that you give the illustrator so that he or she can properly quote the amount that you're going to have to pay. And that way they're not having to come back and charge you more and say, well, that's not what we agreed on. So again, we're trying to communicate everything up front. What will the clothing look like? What types of props do you want? How do you want the character's hair to look? What race do you want? Multitude? Do you want many races, or do you just want one race? Do you want all girl characters, or do you want an entire family? What type of clothing will they wear, and will they change clothing in every scene? You have to think about the fact that all of this takes time, and to make these changes as you go kind of frustrates the illustrator and it prolongs the job. And what you don't want is a illustrator who gives up in the middle of the project, and then you're stuck with a few images, and you have to go and try to find somebody else to help complete that. That's a train wreck that you don't want. You also want to be able to communicate facial expressions. For example, in my last children's book, Hope for My Hurts, I wanted my character to look like he was destitute. Notice he doesn't even have on shoes, but I wanted him to be in a frolicking, free type way here. And I wanted him to look happier than he does here, because I want to show that, these issues and hurts don't last always, that there is hope. The sun's going to shine again, even sometimes if you have to create your own sunshine. So all of these decisions need to be made ahead of time. What is your front cover going to look like? And then if the illustrator is drawing your back cover, what is that going to look like? And you need to give your illustrator a description of what you want to see in every single spread. There are occasions when you can send your manuscript to the illustrator with a breakdown of the pages, but many times they want to know up front what it is you want to see, because they can draw a beautiful entire book and then you say, no, this isn't what I had in mind. I wanted it to look a different way. And so that's why it's important to communicate up front what it is you expect to see. So notice the illustration that I have here. This is one that is rather simple, even though you see that there is some kind of fancy shading when you get to the bottom of the illustration. But just compare that to this illustration where you see lots of depth, lots of dimension. And this is considered a 3D. Well, it's somewhat of a 3D. Some parts of it may be 3D. But anyway, this is pretty detailed. And if you want every spread like this, of course, your budget needs to be higher than if you're going with a background like this one. So are you looking for a simple background, or are you looking for a more an in-depth background like this one, where you see just a lot of detail, and you see a lot of depth and a lot of dimension? So one thing you need to talk with your publisher about, if you're not self-publishing, is how do you want the images delivered? Is a JPEG good, or should it be PNG? Do you want to do it or deliver it in PDF? Most will require a minimum resolution of 300 DPI for your pictures to print very clearly and to not be blurry. Think about your color palettes, because sometimes that comes into play and your illustrator may need information on that. Do you like watercolors? Do you like pastels? What is it that you want your illustrations to look like? And so maybe you can find some illustrations to show your illustrators so they have an idea of what it is you're looking for. So, misspelled sketches there, but that's what I meant. And I'm going to talk about sketches a little bit more in just a few minutes. So I'm going to go back and just leave this up as I talk with you about some of the other things that you want to mention to your illustrator. So you can negotiate the price, but I just encourage you to be fair, because this isn't something, if they're done right, that can be done just very quickly. Books have to have custom made illustrations for every single spread. And so you need to know as much as you can about your book and your expectations before you approach an illustrator. You need to have a realistic mindset, a realistic budget in mind. So find out, for example, some illustration costs. For example, ask people, how much were your illustrations? Because I really like what your illustrator did. Find out if you can approach them. Some illustrators will tell you, I don't put anything on paper for less than $1,500, or my fee might be $5,000. You can pay anywhere from $300 up to $10,000 or even more. Some traditionally published books with very professional illustrators, they can be very, very pricey, because when it comes to a picture book, Pictures make the books. The children or the readers need to be able to see the story in action without even seeing the words. They should be able to pick up on what's going on in the book without reading it. So that's why picture books are so, or the illustrations for picture books are so very important. You might be using a website like Fiverr. And if you are, you have to know that it is an international website where, of course, people are from around the world. That means they may have a language barrier, or I'm not saying that their language is wrong and yours is right, but they may not be able to understand what you are saying, what you're describing. And so that's why pictures help them to kind of see your vision. But don't be surprised sometimes if you are asking for a football player with knee pads, if the knee pads are on the outside of the pants. Or if, for example, someone's driving and they're on the right side of the car and not the left side. Those are cultural things, or those are geographical things that you and your illustrator have to work out. But from the beginning, the more detail you can give your illustrator, the better. So check out the illustrator's portfolio. For example, before you hire them, you should be able to see some samples of work that they have done for other people. Have they drawn illustrations similar to what you are seeking? And are their reviews favorable? How many gigs have they done on this platform? Are they reliable? Are they responsive? Are they communicative? Do they have good English or your language, whatever that might be? You can request a sample first to gauge not only the level of skill, but also the level of service, the punctuality, the communication, and all of that you will receive. So I caution you about sending a large lump sum prior to knowing, or having some type of expectation of what you're going to get and who you're working with. Kind of feel those things out by starting very small. You can also get samples from several different illustrators. Now, of course, there's a cost. So you again have to determine your budget and how much you want to spend on this project. Some illustrators will draw the sketches, and this is for the entire project. They may draw sketches and then come back and color them. If they do that, you're able to later use those sketches for coloring books or coloring sheets. So that's a great thing because they can make corrections to things before they actually color them. And then that saves them time from having to start all over and do a different sketch. So those are just a few tips. But after you receive images, be sure that you reread your story pages and make sure that the words and the illustrations are really lining up. If not, the sooner you let the illustrator know, the better. But try to communicate everything that you want fixed at one time, as opposed to a note here and then a couple of days later saying, oh, but you know what? I don't like those shoes. Let them know everything, because you don't want a frustrated illustrator. You want to be prompt with your responses, but you want to be very thorough and let them know everything at one time. Because like I said earlier, if you allow your illustrator to get frustrated and to quit on you, yes, maybe they've done 5 illustrations for you, but finding somebody else to pick up and to match what they've done is going to be nearly impossible. You'll probably have to start over, and that's not what you want. So you want to be truthful in what you're communicating as far as your budget, what you're looking for. Don't hoodwink them into taking a job that they think is simple, and then you get all expansive in your request and what you're wanting, because that's going to end up in a train wreck, and it's not going to save you money. It's going to cost you more, because you'll have to hire someone else and start over, and you're losing time in the process. So it's important to always be cordial, to be kind, to compliment your illustrator, and also give a tip, especially if you're using an online platform, because again, they are really trying to please you and give you illustrations that will really help your book sell. It's an important part of your your publishing process. So you want to be a team and be a team player and help them as much as you possibly can. So these are just some of the things to think about when you are communicating with an illustrator and when you're hiring an illustrator. And you can sometimes get into some bad situations, but just don't let it be on your end. Be professional, be polite, communicate as best you can. And if you are using a platform like Fiverr, then you can take your correspondence to support or to the customer service relations, and they usually are going to decide in your favor. But again, you should be fair and not change in the middle of a situation or in the middle of a job and then fire someone because you didn't know what you wanted or you were not consistent with your request that you asked for in the very beginning. You frustrated them and then they gave up. So that's not fair. So again, do your homework, be thorough, know everything that you want when you're going into it, and you can get wonderful illustrations that will be great. And they will be around for a very, very, very long time. You are going to own these illustrations, and so you're paying up front for them, and then the rights will belong to you. So when you get ready to do your copyright, you will let the copyright.gov know that you are the author and you requested these illustrations. You have a contract with this illustrator, and these are now your property. So you had a contract for hire for these illustrations, and they belong to you. So again, I hope this was helpful. Please leave comments if it is helpful. And if there's more content that you like, if you have questions, don't hesitate to let us know. You can find us at hadassascrownpublishing.com. Our email address is hadassascrown@gmail.com. Thank you for supporting our channel. We are in the process of publishing. We will be back in just with you very shortly with some new books. So stay tuned for that. And this week, you will see more videos that will have us reading to children so that you can share those with the children in your lives who may be tired of reading, or maybe you're tired of reading, or they just can't get enough books. We hope that's the case. This is the summertime. We don't want them to have a summer slide. So thank you again for joining us, and we will be back with you again soon.